plunging from 33,330 feet without a parachute, beating odds of 1 in 10 octillion, crawling for days across frozen wilderness with shattered legs, escaping a nuclear blast twice, surviving brutal dismemberment and living to testify. These aren't fiction, they're 5 of the most jaw-dropping survival stories in human history. In 1972, 22-year-old Yugoslav flight attendant Vesna Vulovic was blown out of a plane after a terrorist bomb detonated midair. She plummeted from 33,330 feet, over 6 miles, a height even greater than Mount Everest's summit. She should have died instantly. But Vesna was trapped inside the tail section, which smashed into a snowy, tree-covered slope in Czechoslovakia. The angle, the trees, and the deep snow cushioned the impact just enough. Rescuers found her broken, unconscious, but alive. She suffered a fractured skull, 2 broken legs, crushed vertebrae, and temporary paralysis. Doctors said she survived partly due to low blood pressure, which caused her to black out quickly and avoid a heart attack during the fall. Ironically, she'd only gotten the job by drinking coffee to fake higher blood pressure at her medical exam. Vesna later recovered and even walked again. She holds the Guinness World Record for the highest fall without a parachute. On August 6, 1945, Tsutomu Yamaguchi, a 29-year-old Japanese marine engineer, was on a business trip in Hiroshima when the world's first atomic bomb was dropped. He was just 3.9 miles from ground zero. The blast ruptured his eardrums, scorched his body, and temporarily blinded him. But he survived. Burned, deafened, and barely alive, he staggered through the ruined streets and managed to board a train home. Nagasaki. 3 days later, while describing the Hiroshima bombing to his boss, the second atomic bomb detonated, right above Nagasaki, nearly on top of him again. Yamaguchi survived both blasts. Despite radiation sickness and horrific injuries, he lived into his 90s. Though over 160 people experienced both bombings, he is the only one officially recognized by the Japanese government as a survivor of both. He endured the unendurable, nuclear annihilation, twice, and became a symbol of survival. Roy Cleveland Sullivan wasn't just a park ranger. He was a man defying nature's wrath in the most bizarre way imaginable. Between 1942 and 1977, while working in Virginia's Shenandoah National Park, he was struck by lightning 7 separate times and survived every single one. Nicknamed the human lightning rod, Sullivan holds the Guinness World Record for the most verified lightning strikes survived by a single person. Each strike left its mark: scorched hair, seared skin, burns, broken bones, but never death. The odds of this happening are mind-boggling. For a typical person, the chance of being struck once in 80 years is about 1 in 10,000. The chance of surviving 7 such events is so astronomical, about 1 in 10 octillion, that it borders on impossible. But Sullivan wasn't an average person. As a ranger, he was constantly in storm-prone wilderness, increasing his risk. Tragically, after decades of surviving nature's most violent force, Sullivan died by suicide in 1983, at the age of 71. In 1978, 15-year-old Mary Vincent was hitchhiking when she was picked up by Lawrence Singleton, a man who would soon become her worst nightmare. After driving her to a remote area, Singleton attacked her with a sledgehammer and knocked her unconscious. He sexually assaulted and dismembered her, severing both her forearms with a hatchet, then dumped her off a cliff, assuming she was dead. But Mary didn't die. She packed her wounds with dirt to stop the bleeding, climbed the cliff using the stumps of her arms, and walked nearly 3 miles along a highway before finding help. Despite the trauma, she insisted on helping police identify her attacker, refusing to sleep until the sketch was complete. Despite the brutality of his crimes, Singleton received a sentence of just 14 years, the maximum penalty at the time for such crimes in California. He served only 8, released in 1987, sparking public outrage. During the trial, Mary testified courageously. After his release, Singleton moved to Florida, where in 1997 he murdered a woman named Roxanne Hayes, a mother of 3. Mary again flew across the country to testify against him. This time he was sentenced to death, but he died in prison of cancer in 2001. In 1985, 25-year-old Joe Simpson and 21-year-old Simon Yates became the first to scale the 6,344-meter west face of Ciula Grande in the Peruvian Andes. But their triumph turned to horror on the descent. Simpson fell off an ice cliff and shattered his leg, a death sentence at that altitude. Desperate to save him, Yates began lowering him down the mountain on a rope section by section. But as a blizzard rolled in and visibility vanished, Simpson was unknowingly lowered off the edge of a cliff. Dangling in the void, Simpson couldn't climb back up. Yates, anchored in a snow seat and slowly being pulled off the mountain, had no choice. After over an hour of trying to hold on, he cut the rope. Simpson fell into a crevasse, but he didn't die. He survived the fall, crawled deeper into the glacier, and somehow found a tunnel of light. Then, with a broken leg and frostbite setting in, he began an agonizing 3-day crawl across ice and rock, dragging himself with his arms, hallucinating from hunger and pain. When he finally reached base camp, he was just hours from being left behind forever. His survival defied logic, and he told the story himself in his book and film, Touching the Void, one of the most gripping survival tales ever recorded.